Okay, so first of all, I don't like being, that guy who spoils the fun from everyone. But who the fuck am I kidding? I love being the guy that spoils fun for every single one of you. Um, but so long as it is the truth of what actually is. Okay, the BL-01s got the exact same response, not the very same, but excellent response, like the BL-03s when they just released them. The question are they really good, like a lot of people say? Are they actual giant killers? Are they, or as simply as, are they actually inherently better than the O3s? And the answer might surprise you. So I just got these for about a few days ago. I had a listen to them before I did the Bahasa Indonesian review of the SSP. So if you're from Indonesia and you've watched the SSP review, you know what's my first impression of the BL-01s. A few more days have passed from the review of the SSP. Now I think I would like to say that I have heard these enough to review them, and compared these enough with these 5 IMs to actually review them. The BL-01's TLDR is basically the BL-03's with a little bit more upper mid range, a little bit more treble, and a little bit less bass. That's a huge TLDR, but everybody knows that. So make sure to watch until the end of the videos, because I'm gonna dig deeper about these facts. Okay, so the build quality is just like the O3s. The cable is absolute garbage. Everybody keeps saying that this has better fitting than the O3s, while I disagree, because I need to cut the what do you call that, the not memory wire, the ear hooks from these off, so they would fit my ears. So it's kind of like depends on your ear shapes, while the BL-03s fits fine, absolutely fine to my ears. So yeah, so fitting is kind of depends on what type of ear. These are also very big. That's what she said. If you can compare them with the old threes, you can see that it's quite a sizable difference. So yeah, be sure to be ready for that one. Ear tips are the same. The box is very disappointing. If you look at the box here, it says dreams. It's not dreams, which is like the correct way to spell it. And the back here says that the driving unit is made out of 10mm biofiber diaphragm. But correct me if I'm wrong. Biofiber is a type of carbon, right? And the old BL-01 is made out of carbon diaphragm. I don't know if these are actually the same drivers. The sensitivity is the same, though the impedance is different. The problem is when I tried both of these using the amp, the SMSL amp, which has the power to do 6 watts per channel for 16 ohms and 3 watts per channel for 32 ohms. I would expect I need a little bit more juice to power up the BL-03s against the BL-01. But when I tried them using these, I don't actually turn the dial even a bit, and they sound very similarly. So I don't know if they actually use the same driver or not. Those from the packaging, it says it's different. So yeah, but you don't actually care about that. The cables is shit. Okay, that's it for the build. For the sound quality, what I like about these is they tone down the bass. The bass is extremely overwhelming in the BL-01 freeze. If you watched my review of the BL-01 freeze, you'll know that I despise the bass of the BL-01 freeze. It's bloated, it's loose, it bleeds everywhere. It's just not a pleasant bass response. However, here it's a bit more textured, it's a bit tighter, it's not as bleeding to the mid-range as the BL-01 freeze. So it's a small change, but a welcome change, if I can say that. The mid-range is a bit similar. It still has that type of BL-01 free warmth to the sound, the tonality, and though it has a bit more upper mid-range bite towards the 3K region, which makes the music more, I guess, exciting is a correct term for that. Yeah, nothing really differs from these and the BL-01 freeze. The timbre characteristics are also very similar between these two IMs. Yeah, they are not the most detailed type of sound, just like the BL-01 freeze. So if you're looking for that detailed sound type of IM, like for example the 10T2s, you're not getting it here. It's still that warm and lush type of sound that the BL-01 freeze has, though with an extra upper mid-range. The treble, however, is where I prefer the BL-01 freeze above the BL-01s. The treble in the 0 freeze is where I would like to say, in a, I guess, a perfect spot for treble, of how much treble should be in the treble proper, not as much in the treble air. I would like a bit more extension in the treble air with the 0 freeze. However, the 01's treble is, I wouldn't say sharp, but at some cases, it's some type of music, it's some type of vocals, I could hear that kind of gritty, like roughness in the. It's not because of the texture. It's like it's just like, you know that sound when you scratched a wall. It's not quite like that, but that kind of gritty, like rough sound, like grainy type of sound from the treble proper here. I don't know if it's just my unit that does that, or it's just a unit variant thing, or it's a quality control issue within the newer batches of the BL-01s. But that's what I heard from here, which I say that the treble proper is definitely more pleasant in the BL-01 freeze. I guess, yes, that's it probably for the trifecta. Now let's get to the technicality aspect. For the technicality aspect, I would like to say that the BL-01 is relatively similar to the BL-01 freeze. It has better texturing a little bit, though the textural nuance of a lot of instruments are not really clear as much as something like the 10T2s, I guess. The BL-01 still does that a little bit better than the BL-01 freeze. The detail retrieval, the resolution, the pure detail retrieval, micro detailing capabilities are relatively similar, though a little because of that textural representation ability of the BL-01 is a bit better than the BL-03s. I would give that to the BL-01. However, what I don't like of the BL-01 is they have a significantly smaller and tighter stage. I guess more intimate for a lot of you to see, which the BL-03 does better at, because it's a bit wider, a bit more relaxed type of stage, while the BL-01 sounds a bit more intense, like everywhere. It's like what happens between the TIN-T2s and the TIN-T2 Plus, where I say I don't like the TIN-T2 Plus, though the tuning is, you can see, a bit more superior than the TIN-T2s. No, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, but a lot of people say the tuning is better in the TIN-T2 Plus, though the technicality aspect is a bit lacking. It's noticeably lacking, though in here it's not really lacking in technicalities, but in the stage and imaging department it's definitely not the best, even comparing these with the BL-03s, which the BL-03s doesn't actually have the wider soundstage. That's quite noticeably narrower soundstage than something like the TIN-T2s. So yeah. Or the final E2K. I don't think this is very good for that type of sound. If you're looking for a soundstage, an okay amount of soundstage, I'm actually considering this a bit intense for my preference. Which is why, if you're asking me which one would I pick, if these are actually better than the BL-03s, I would not say that they are actually like better. It depends on what you're looking for. Are you okay with that kind of treble grittiness in the treble here and the intimate soundstage? For me, I don't like that. That's why I would probably gravitate towards the old 03s against the 01s. But still, this is a very good IM. For comparisons, I did a lot of comparison with the 03s. I think I've said a lot enough with the 03s. Against the TIN-T2s, in the SSR video, in the Indonesian SSR video, I mentioned that the BL-01 is a serious contender of recommendation against the TIN-T2s. But I would still prefer the TIN-T2s over the BL-01s. The problem with the BL-01s is that tight soundstage and the what do you call that? Oh, the grittiness of the vocals of the upper mid range and the treble proper is not really my cup of tea. Especially that soundstage, because I'm a soundstage type of person, and I still like the bass tuning in the TIN-T2 better than the BL-01s. I'm not really a bass heavy type of listener, so yeah, I would pick the TIN-T2s over the BL-01s, though it all depends on personal preference. If you would like to choose like any of these IMs, all of the IMs I have on the table, except probably for the SSP, because of obvious reasons, are fairly good. Actually, the SSP is pretty good if you EQ them, yeah. And the comparing them against the TIN-T2s, I did it before. It's wider, it's a bit more detailed, it has wider soundstage, it has more extended treble, it has much more linear bass. The overall mid-range tonality, something that's a BL-01 specialty, I would still give it to the BL-01s because of that warmth in the mid-range, and that realistic timbre is a bit better here. also in the BL-01s rather than the Tin T2, so it's a bit much of a toss-up. Though I still recommend the Tin T2s over the BL-01s because of probably my personal preference. Against the final E2K, however, it's basically, if I would simplify it a bit much, I think it's a much more open sounding IM. The tuning is actually, though both of them is neutral with bass boost, the E2K is actually a bit more somewhat of a V-shaped sounding IM, and it has a bit more thinner mid-range sound than the thicker, warmer sound of the BL-01s. The bass is not as elevated as these two, especially in the sub-bass region. It sounds as wide probably as the Tin T2s. The detail retrieval is also a bit better in the E2K, though it's not significantly better that you would like a lot of people would notice, especially when commuting. The isolation is still better here. The imaging, because due to the wider soundstage, is also better in the E2K. So to me personally, I would pick the 2K over the BL-01s. So not okay, so it, to me personally, I would pick the BL-03 over the BL-01s. I would pick the Tin T2 over the BL-01s, and I would pick the E2K over the BL-01s. You see where this is going, right? It's not that the BL-01 is bad or like anything close to bad. It's very, very, very good, very excellent. Though the caveat of that soundstage is just a bit too much for me to really like these. Though the tuning is courtesy of like the BLON tuning, like the BLON 003, the BLON 05S, not the BLON 05, the BLON 05S is actually very good. Against the SSP, if I can EQ this, I'll pick the SSP because of that wider soundstage and the more open sound. Though if you don't EQ them, this is an absolute garbage. So I'll pick the BL-01. It's much thicker here, of course. It's the SSP. What do you expect? It's much thicker in the BL-01s. It's the textured bass, the proper tonality is just significantly better in the BL-01s rather than the SSP. Though it's much more open sounding. It's much more wider, I guess, taller. Though instruments tend to sound bigger here rather than the SSPs. Against the Sony MH755, though, I recommend the Sony MH755 any time of the day. If you're gonna buy them, it's literally $5. Buy the MH755 and get the Modem MCX. The soundstage is wider in the MH755. Transients are very similar in these two. Tuning is also similar, though I would have a bit more lower mid-range warmth in the BL-01s rather than the MH755. The MH755 sounds a bit thinner with a more noticeable V-shaped sound rather than the BL-01s. The MH755 is closer to the V-shaped sound rather than the BL-01s closer to the just like the BL-01s closer to the neutral with boosted bass, I guess, if you could just say. So yeah, it's much more of a personal preference, surprisingly. That's just showing how great the MH755 actually is. If you're asking me which one has the more pleasant type of tonality, I would just say the BL-01s. So yeah. However, if you're just looking for that more technical type of sound and you don't really like that type of boosted mid bass or something that might bleed. By the way, oh yeah, I just remember these have the bass here are always present, like the BL-01, though not as much as the BL-01. It's still almost as present as the BL-01. Everything sounds bassy here. It's a little bit bonus for you who stays until the end of the video. It's still just as present here. Not just as present, it's a bit less present, but you get the point. So yeah, I guess that's it for the review. Not the giant killer people would expect, but it's an appreciable type of IM that a lot of people can enjoy, and I can also enjoy. To me, there are a lot of more IMs that I would prefer more than this. That's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to watch Jason's video. I probably put him right here. If not, then I must have forgot. See you next time, and Godspeed.